Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. Thank you for coming to my channel. Well, today I'm going to do a little video about the Chrisleys. In case you don't know who the Chrisleys are, they had a reality TV show called Chrisley Knows Best, and it was headed by Todd Chrisley and Julie Chrisley, and they were convicted of various financial crimes. They were sent to prison. Todd got a 12-year prison sentence. He is now serving that at FPC Pensacola. And Julie got I believe it was a 7-year sentence, and she is in Lexington, Kentucky at the Federal Medical Center. And the conditions have not been good for them. In case you don't know this couple or the channel, it was a lifestyle type of channel. Very wealthy people. They were millionaires. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on clothes. They were very into a lot of high-priced items, just living the life, you know, having anything they wanted. They basically could have just about anything they wanted. And now it's different. It's changed. They're having probably a huge adjustment issue, both of them. I'm sure they are. I would, if I was taken from that lifestyle and having to be forced to sleep in cots, uncomfortable beds, the prison beds that they have. I'm sure they're not that comfortable. I'm sure having to wear the clothing that the day in and day out, the uniforms or type of clothing that they have to wear. And apparently Todd, who liked to dye his hair, he is no longer allowed to dye his hair. He can't have the hair dye in there. Has a full head of gray hair. Well, you know, I mean, that's at that age, you know, sometimes you start. I have a little bit of gray, not that much. I've been, I guess, lucky that most of my hair colors stayed, but I do have a little bit. So I used to dye my hair maybe once a year, once every 7 or 8 months, and I haven't done it for a long time. I was just letting it grow out, not really attending to it. But I think if I was used to it, I think that would be such a hard adjustment. It really would be. And also the no privacy issue, I think that's probably one of the biggest issues there. You have no privacy for anything, for showers, for using the restroom. There's just no place you can go to be by yourself. And I think that would be the hardest thing for me. I'd have to be in solitary confinement or something. I think I would do better in solitary confinement because I can't put up the screaming and the yelling and there's a lot of noise in prison, a lot of hectic behavior, noises all day and night, 24 hours a day. People screaming, inmates, you know, banging objects, making noise, just to make noise, just to be heard, just for the attention of it. They get bored. It becomes like, you know, they literally become like rats in a cage, and there's not much comfort, you know, in those prison cells. They can only bring, you know, it depends on the warden, it depends on the prison that they're at, you know, what personal items they can bring, what they can have. And it's just different in, you know, every single prison, every single jail, what you can have or not have. And I think the lack of personal care products, stuff like that. Todd used to like to use a lot of creams and lotions, and, you know, he took care of himself. He was a very well put together guy, and I think a lot of people consider him like a metrosexual. I don't know if that term is still around, but he was, you know, comfortable in using hair products, face products, everything. You know, he was, you know, that snappy dresser kind of guy, clothes horse kind of guy. He was just very centered about how he looked. He was very, very particular about the way he looked, how he had his hair, everything. He did Botox. You know, he was, you know, keeping up the property. That's for sure. And Julie too, she was, you know, always perfectly, had her hair done, perfect makeup, everything, always dressed very nice, very cute clothes. And I think it would be just, oh, that's got to be one of the hardest adjustments for those two people, I think, and the lack of privacy. And a lot of these prisons, you know, they're old, they're not attended to, they're not taken care of, they have like holes in the walls, and not, they're just old. A lot of them are crumbling. A lot of them were made with asbestos. Depending on the location, there may not be any air conditioning, or if you're in a humid state, there might be black mold growing, which Todd is in Florida, which there's probably a lot of humidity there. And being that it's an old, you know, these buildings get old and crumbly, and they're not, you know, they're not like taken care of like you take care of your house. They are probably given the minimum amount of money to take care of it, and they probably don't spend a whole lot on the building, just enough to keep it up to code, and using, you know, the rest of the money for other things. And the no heat, and I mean no air conditioning in that kind of heat is excruciating. I live in Texas, most of you know, but anybody that, if you haven't seen my videos, I gripe about the heat all the time. I hate it. I grew up in the heat, and it didn't bother me as a child. I mean, I remember running around in high 90s weather, and I loved it, and I couldn't wait for summertime. Oh, I couldn't wait for summertime to be in that pool and be running around outside. I hated wintertime when I was little. I was just so used to the heat. I was so acclimated to it. When wintertime came, I actually got anxiety, and I dreaded wintertime. And I hated wintertime. So I grew up just loving the heat and the hot weather. I used to burn to a crisp. You know, I have very fair skin, but I was just in love with the sun, and I was a sun bunny and all that. But now I hate it. I burst into flames if I step into the light, into the sun or the heat. I can't stand it. It's too much. I know it's with my age, and plus the temperature has gotten higher, because it was not like this growing up where we had 100-degree days for stretches. You know, like I think it was like on Wednesday it was like 107 or 108, and then yesterday it was like 104, 105. Today it's going to be maybe 103, I think. Which here, if it says 103 or 4 on the Weather Channel, it's, you know, it could go up to like 107 or 8. So that's just an approximation for us. And the temperature can always go up a little bit. So that's, you know, we hope it's 105 instead of 108. Which, you know, you may not think 2 or 3 degrees is that big of a deal, but when it's 108, I'd rather it be a few degrees less. I'd like for it to be like, my ideal weather is in the 70s, I guess. I love like I like a little bit of sunshine, but I like cool weather. I love fall, 50s, 60s. Oh, I love sweater weather, and I wear hoodies a lot, and I love that kind of weather. But in these prisons, it is excruciating. It is, people are, you know, losing their life in this hot weather. And Texas is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And they say that by 2050, it could be up to, I think, like 120 degrees or more. And right now, I got a great breeze going through here. It's really hot. I think it's around probably about 100 degrees right now, maybe a little above that, but we got a good breeze going through, so it doesn't feel that hot. I'm not sweating as bad, but I did get some, I got some numbers here. For the Texas prisons, 14% have no air conditioning, and that's none. None in the central areas like the mess hall, the cafeteria, or in the TV rooms that they have, the activity rooms, and in the kitchen. I worked in a hot kitchen where it was boiling hot, and I think I told a story it was in one of the other videos. The state came in, and it was, I was like on my way out the door to go tell the administrator, this is cruel, and I can't do it, I was getting so sick at my stomach. So when you're working in something that has employees, well, a lot of the employees in prison are the prisoners, but there are guards that have to go through this also. So if there's no air conditioning in certain parts of the prison, it's not just the prisoners, the guards there too. I'm sure the warden has air conditioning in his office. Pretty sure. 50% partial air conditioning, which that means probably not in the cells, but in the cafeteria, in some of the meeting rooms, some of the family rooms, TV rooms, stuff like that. In certain areas, there may be air conditioning. And then there's 31% that have full air conditioning. And if you're lucky enough to be put in one of those, that's, the luck of the draw if you get put in that. But Texas prisons are probably about 70% have little to no air conditioning at all. And when you're in a cell that, a lot of these prisons don't have windows, or they may have a window, but you can't open it, you can't get fresh air. And in 105 or 10 degree weather, it goes up to 120, 30 degrees in a enclosed area. Prisoners I've heard of, they were pouring water on the floor, getting water out of their toilet or the sink and pouring it on the floor and laying on the cement floor to cool off. I just can't imagine. I wouldn't do well in that at all. And the numbers for kids that have passed away are 16 kids so far in Texas. That's way too many. It is, in hot cars. I'm not talking about prisons or anything, but just a number I'm throwing in. 16 children. That should be zero. It's heartbreaking to me. And in Laredo, between June 15th and July 3rd, this number shocked me. I was surprised, because this is an area where it's extremely hot. People are accustomed to it. When you live in a place where there's a lot of hot weather, you learn how to deal with it, and you live with it. And there's people that live, down south of Texas all of their life, and they just know, what to do. Carry water, stay in the shade. If you get really hot, they know the symptoms and signs of heat stroke, heat exhaustion. But 10 people had died in Laredo between June 15th and June 3rd because of heat-related deaths. That's how hot it's getting here. And most of the prisoners that have passed away are male prisoners. Most of them, I think it was like 94%. I don't know if that was a figure from last year or this year. I didn't write that down, but these are numbers that it might have been from last year, 2022, but I was looking around for the top of how the deaths are, the statistic that it's given to, like natural causes. 66%, 4% other, 3% accidental. And then there was, well, I've lost some numbers, but there was a lot of different numbers of what they consider. It was a little confusing, so I don't really have it. I couldn't really get a good count, because they deny, the Texas government will deny that there are prison deaths from heat. They've said there's only been one, which is a lie, total lie. And out of 2022, a huge number of 279 people in Texas have died from the heat. And this number is including people who have crossed the border, migrants who have crossed the border, about 50%, I don't know, around 50, 51, 49%. It's about half and half for residents who've lived here, people who've lived here legally, and then there are the migrants who are crossing the border. A lot of them pass away from the heat. They don't bring water. They cross the river. They get stuck in Texas is basically a desert in certain parts, and around by the border between Mexico and Texas, extremely hot. It's horrible, hard. If they're not near a city, if they get dropped off in the middle of the desert or something with no water, and these coyotes are horrible people. They don't care. They leave little kids, children. They will drop them off in the middle of a desert. There's numerous times that the Border Patrol has rescued like toddlers, babies, little kids dying in the desert. And it's, I mean, who could do that? It's disgusting. And that is how hot that it gets. People just can't, I mean, even people from Mexico who have been in that weather, they know how hot it is, but they cross the border thinking it's going to be easy, that the people that are helping them cross the border are going to take care of them and help them, and, you know, they don't. It's a horrible, horrible thing that they do. When they think they're going to be caught or something, they'll just drop people off anywhere, and they'll leave them in the desert with no water, no shade, no nothing. And there's not a lot of trees, big trees that you can hide under. There's, you know, rocks and mesquite and cactus and scrub and all that. And you can't get any place to, you know, get out of the heat. There's no shade. And unfortunately, there's so many people that have passed away in the prisons. I don't know the number exactly for 2023. I think I've seen, I don't want to give an exact number because I've seen like 10 different numbers, so I don't know. As high as, I think, 141 of people dying, not just in the prisons, but from the heat in Texas overall. So I've seen numbers like somewhere up from like 70, I think it was like 79 or 72 to like 140 something. So I don't know how it's being recorded. There's so many different numbers, but by the end of the year, I'm sure that number will be in the hundreds, you know, 300 people, unfortunately. Well, and they're suffering through the heat, no privacy, maybe health hazards from asbestos, mold, you know, bad conditions, lead paint even. Like I say, a lot of these buildings are old. They've been not attended to, not taken care of. And also, there was a report from Julie's daughter, Savannah, saying that a snake had gotten into her mother's, I believe in her mother's cell, or ran across in front of her feet, or something to that effect. And I believe it was a non-poisonous snake, which, you know, thank goodness, not a rattlesnake. And, but rattlesnakes this is a thing, unfortunately, in Texas, and I think in other places too, that every once in a while a snake can get into the sewer pipes and can come up through the toilet. There's been numerous videos on YouTube and I've seen several videos of that. And it's been reported in the newspaper. Every once in a while there's a newspaper story about rattlesnake getting into the pipes in the toilet. And I do remember one from a long time ago that a lady, she had used the restroom, and then standing up, turning around to flush the toilet, she saw a rattlesnake's head pop out. Very lucky it didn't bite her. And that does happen every once in a while. It's not common, you know, but I always check my toilet. Always. I don't care where I'm at. I always check my toilet because I have a fear of that. Because it has happened, and it's, you know, it's hot here and there's rattlesnakes. But anyway, hopefully you won't have to deal with that. I don't want to unlock a new fear for you. But there's one thing I was going to mention also, that Todd had requested put in an application for the CARES Act, which I believe I talked about this in one of the earlier videos when I was talking about the Chrisleys when they were first being sent to prison. And the CARES Act was enacted, I believe it was right around the time of the pandemic, or I don't know, I can't really remember, but it was to put people in home confinement so that they would not be exposed to COVID, and if they were sensitive to other health problems, it would alleviate some of the problems with possibly spreading it in the prison. A lot of people did get their applications passed, and they got to spend the last of their sentence at home. They may have, run their sentence out while they were at home. And then some of the people that had a longer sentence, they got to stay in home confinement. And then I believe it was in April of this year that the deadline had passed, that the CARES Act, that was completely over with. And if you were serving home confinement, you still had time left. A lot of those people were sent back to prison. I think there was some that were allowed to just stay in home confinement. They only had a little bit of time left. And instead of going through the whole process, I think there were some people that were actually allowed to finish a few months out of their sentence. Which I actually think to me, home confinement is not going to jail. It's, a luxury to get to stay in your home. Although you're not allowed to go out, you can't go shopping, can't go do, ride around, go get a Coke or do something. You can't do that. You got to stay in your home, and you got to wear an ankle monitor bracelet usually. And maybe for some nonviolent crimes, I do believe maybe that's acceptable. And especially if you do have a health problem, maybe so. If your family is willing to take care of you or something like that. But, if you're committing crime, I think you should, you got to pay the time. You got to go lock up. But apparently his application, Todd's application, he gave it to the administrator of that, I'm not sure, of the Pensacola. I don't know if it was one administrator for the whole program or if they had to do it specifically at the prison they were at. I'm not really sure, but he did turn in his application. It was not passed, and the deadline has already passed, and he got very upset about that. I believe he filed suit against the administrator, maybe the prisoner, I don't know. He has started legal action because of that, because he says that he should have been allowed to enjoy home confinement. So good luck with that. And there is some possibility, I think I mentioned in one of the videos, that yes, they could get a lighter sentence if their appeal works out in their favor. But I don't know if I would really risk that, because they didn't show a whole lot of remorse. So there's still a little bit of, I think they're still not feeling the effect that they should have, they haven't fully reflected, I don't think. I think they feel like they still should not go to prison, and they are appealing their sentences, and, well, we'll see what happens with that. Okay, thank y'all. Stay safe and stay hydrated. Stay out of the sun, stay out of the heat. Just be careful. Thank you all.